So, Steffi, what do weather forecasters do on a Friday night?
Well, Joe, some might go out, some might have an early night, but you and I talk about the weather.
It has to be done because it's been an interesting week, and I particularly like this week the weather headline, "Bloody Hell," which then went on to show pictures of cars stranded, not just in the areas that had warnings out, but pretty much anywhere. It was pretty cataclysmic, that rainfall.
It's amazing the way some people can come up with those headlines, because you could stick me in a room for 3 days and I would not touch it with a barge pole. But other people, it's amazing. It's a certain knack. It is a skill.
Yeah, it's putting the headlines on red tops. My brother is particularly good at that, but then he does work for one, so
Oh,
he
there we go.
he should be fairly practiced. But whoever came up with it, absolutely brilliant. Really applaud that. I mean, how many years have I been doing the weather? I don't think I've seen one quite so good. But yes, we had cars stranded all over the place. Pictures of these, vehicles floating around. Really terrible, terrible conditions. I
Yeah,
would
the
never have let my
worst.
son drive across to Macclesfield yesterday had I known what the weather was like. To be fair, I did say to him, go south, don't take the 180, the 62, because there's a weather warning there and it's not likely to be very pretty. So I sent him further south on the more tortuous and circuitous route, uphill, down dale, literally, in these terrible conditions where there was a lot of hill fog, couldn't see where he was going, standing water, surface spray. I mean, he's an
Joe,
accomplished
did he
driver.
come back?
No, but I did track him on Find My, so I knew where he was.
Good, good. Well, it's a good job he wasn't anywhere near Edinburgh or Aberdeenshire. Have you seen what's happened up there?
Scotland really got hit badly.
They had 140 millimeters of rain in just 48 hours. It's incredible.
So, given the fact it's been a very dry year so far, are we now starting to average out a bit more?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is averaging out. We had 9 months of below average rainfall, and now it's well above. So what looked like a really dry year now isn't.
We're going completely the other way. Well, of course, there was an amber warning out for Scotland, certainly eastern Scotland, through much of the day. It was supposed to stop at 3 o'clock this afternoon. In fact, it was extended through to 9 o'clock. And so the rain just keeps coming for them. The situation looks absolutely appalling.
Well, fortunately, during the night, that rain band does fizzle out over eastern Scotland. But what's happened is we've got this front that's kind of trundled across us, but there's this huge area of high pressure over Scandinavia, and it's just kind of bumped into that, and it's coming back. So for Scotland, yes, it's getting better in the east, but for the eastern parts of England, that rain's back, and there'll still be some pockets of really heavy rain in there tonight before eventually it fizzles out tomorrow. And the only reason it's fizzling out, because we got another system coming in from the Atlantic that's taking all the energy, and that's going to make things really wet and windy. It's miserable. And do you know what next week brings, Joe?
I've got a fair idea, actually. Yes.
Just give you a clue. Starts with R, ends with N, and has A in the middle.
And strong winds. It's just one
And
after the other. I mean, the way these systems are stacking up in the Atlantic is really quite extraordinary. So there is literally little respite this week. And the funny thing is, so this system that came across us ran into that high and then stalled and is now coming back at us. All right, tonight it's going to help to keep temperatures around sort of 7-8 degrees Celsius. Not warm.
in the east,
Yes,
the
but
Northern
then
Ireland.
yes, suddenly they get clear skies, temperatures plummet. We're looking at a potential -3 or -4 tonight in some rural areas, and certainly through parts of Wales, the southwest, central southern England, possibly even the southeast. Temperatures low enough for a patchy frost and some patchy fog as well.
Brass
And
monkeys weather, Joe.
we were just talking the other day about the fact we haven't really seen a frost so far. So suddenly we've had all these mild conditions, changeable, yes, but also mild. And then suddenly, poof, the floor
Do you know what
goes.
it is, Joe? They've been listening and they went, you say it hasn't been cold? Ha, bang! There we go. Cold.
Try that. Yeah. So as we go overnight, we've got this contrast between central and eastern parts where it's cloudy, still got some rain. Still got that nasty easterly wind into parts of Scotland, but northwesterly elsewhere, bringing a few showers in down through the Irish Sea, through the Cheshire Gap, and that wind itself was a bit of a shock today. It was one of those where you walk out in your casual coat and go, scarf, gloves, hat, woolies.
Misjudge.
Yes, whatever else I've got. So anyway, cold in those areas tonight, and it will be quite a bright start to Saturday. The fog will clear, the frost will lift, it'll be nice and sunny. Don't expect much out of the temperatures, but it lasts for such a short period of time.
Yeah, and then that's it. We're back to misery.
And as this one comes in,
yeah,
and as this it's going to run into that cold air that's been dragged in from that high pressure over Scandinavia. So all these mild conditions, and suddenly we could see some snow over the high ground of Scotland,
and the
potentially.
Pennines.
Yes, potentially as far south as the
Down to the
Pennines.
Pennines.
Now
So yeah,
that's not unusual for this time of year, but it's unusual for this year because we haven't really seen anything like it so far.
that's right. So it's not unusual usually, but this isn't a usual year.
No, completely different. And then as we go into next week, and I did cast my eyes over the temperatures, and again, single figures seem to be favoured. Yeah, it's not looking warm at all next week.
No, it isn't. But have you heard what's going on in the States?
I haven't actually.
Whoa, they have snow and a half. So
Really?
they've got this lake effect snow, which is where you get the cold air down from Canada and it goes across the Great Lakes. But the Great Lakes aren't frozen at this time of year. So they just add all the moisture into the air. And so when it comes off the Great Lakes, it goes, ha, we have loads of moisture and it's cold, snow. And they've just put snow, and they can leave trails and trails of snow. And it's one of the worst snow events, gives us some of the heaviest snows over in the States. So they've been seeing around 10 centimeters of snow in an hour. And by the time this whole thing has finished, later, I think it's Wednesday when it finishes, they're looking at around 1.8 meters of snow.
Oh my Lord, get the sledge out, get the skis out.
Well, they'll be lucky. I think all the doors will be jammed. They won't be able to get out.
Oh, well, there is that, I suppose. Is this the first big snow they've had so far?
I think it's the first major snow event, yes.
So we're all seeing this dramatic change suddenly to these colder conditions. I mean, the jet stream has been very low for us, very far south for us for quite some time, which we can kind of say, okay, we've got mild conditions because, but the States is a whole different ball game. Or have they also had these very low jet streams?
I wouldn't know, Joe, about the jet streams over the US. But yes, our one has been very active and very strong. And that's what's been throwing our weather systems towards us, one after another. But I'm not sure what's going on with the Great Lakes and their jet streams.
Apart from the fact it's going to snow for them a lot, before
Yes.
Wednesday of this week. Well, we will keep an eye on that for sure, as well as the rainfall amounts over parts of Scotland and whether or not we see any snow over the high ground too. Certainly dramatic changes this week. It's so exciting. And that's why you and I are in on a Friday night chatting about the weather instead of enjoying ourselves and socializing somewhere. But you know something? If anybody wants to talk about the weather, discuss anything, ask us anything, it is really quite simple. On Twitter, at Square Raindrop.
Except Square Raindrop didn't fit. So it's at SQ Raindrop.
I do like to get you to confess to that every single time. We'll be back with you shortly. Steffi and Joe together with the weather.
There certainly has been very wet for some of us recently. In the eastern parts of Scotland, some places have reported over 100 millimetres of rain in 36 hours, and that has given us a problem with flooding. That system should ease during the night for Scotland, but further south it will roll back in, and there could be some pockets of lively wet weather in there. Towards the west, it looks like it should be largely fine, and that means it'll get pretty cold during the night, with the temperatures in parts of Northern Ireland dropping below freezing. For the eastern parts then, the wet weather will gradually begin to fragment as we head through the day on Saturday, but only because there's another weather system piling in from the Atlantic. That one will sweep its way across us Saturday night and over Sunday, and behind it will brighten up, but there'll be a whole rash of sunshine and showers. And next week is looking pretty unsettled too.